you truly believe you're free? Pause before you answer. You wake up, and almost instinctively, your hand reaches for your phone. You scroll through updates, reels, stories, not because you need to, but because silence now feels unbearable. A cup of coffee follows, maybe paired with a short video to kill the boredom. Music plays in the background, your earbuds feeding dopamine into your brain as you move through your morning. On the way to work or school, you fill the void again. A podcast, endless social media, buzzing notifications. And then, in those rare, quiet moments when nothing demands your attention, what happens? A strange unease surfaces, a restlessness, an emptiness that urges you to reach for yet another hit of stimulation, another distraction, another tiny pleasure. Here's the truth. The problem isn't pleasure itself. Pleasure is a natural and necessary tool of the mind, an evolutionary compass pointing us toward what helps us survive and thrive. But what happens when pleasure becomes your master? When the constant need to feel good turns into a cage? When the chase for comfort replaces the search for meaning? Nearly a century ago, Aldous Huxley saw this coming, while George Orwell warned of a future ruled by force and fear in 1984. Huxley offered a darker prophecy, a world where no one needs to be forced because they're too entertained to care. In Brave New World, people don't fight back because they're too busy enjoying themselves. Enslavement comes not through chains, but through endless distraction. People begin to love their own servitude. Now look around you. What kind of world are we living in? One obsessed with pleasure, addicted to comfort, terrified of boredom. We chase stimulation at all costs, masking every ounce of discomfort with entertainment. But what is this doing to us? Are we truly free, or have we just become easier to control? In this video, we'll explore how modern society uses the pursuit of pleasure as a subtle but powerful tool of control. We'll uncover how this never-ending chase for gratification might be transforming you into something far more dangerous than a rebel, a willing prisoner, because the perfect form of slavery requires no violence, no punishment, no surveillance. It only needs one thing: pleasure. And when pleasure becomes the center of your world, freedom slips quietly out the back door. Let's now go even deeper into Huxley's haunting vision and what it reveals about the life you may be unconsciously living today. The previous section revealed how pleasure has become the most effective form of control. But now, let's dive even deeper into the conditioning that makes this system feel like freedom. Imagine a world where discomfort is never faced, only masked. In Huxley's Brave New World, the population is kept obedient with soma drug that calms the mind, soothes the soul, and erases any inner conflict. But ask yourself, is that world really fiction? Think about your daily life. Whenever boredom creeps in, when sadness hits, or frustration builds, what's your first instinct? Do you pause to understand what you're feeling? Or do you instinctively grab your phone, check social media, turn on a show, reach for a snack, pour a drink, shop, scroll, binge, swipe? The options are endless. We are living in an age where discomfort lasts only seconds, easily drowned out by an avalanche of stimulation. There's no need to face the void when you can instantly fill it. And here's what's most dangerous. It all feels like a choice. No one's forcing you to scroll TikTok for hours. No one demands that you click that next video, open that app, buy that product. There are no chains, no orders. So why does it feel so hard to stop? The answer lies in something subtle but powerful: conditioning, when your brain is trained to associate every flicker of discomfort with an immediate reward, it begins to reject anything that doesn't offer instant relief. Over time, silence becomes unbearable. Stillness feels like failure. Introspection is avoided at all costs. And slowly, without even noticing, you lose the ability to simply be with yourself. You become, just as Huxley warned, a content prisoner trapped, not by oppression, but by pleasure. But how exactly does this conditioning work? How is it possible that a system of endless gratification can rob us of our most powerful tool, critical thought? That's what we'll explore in the next section, because the trap runs deeper than you think, and it starts long before you even realize you're in it. The last section warned us about a world where pleasure numbs our ability to think critically. Now, let's take that idea one step further, into a reality where comfort becomes the very tool that weakens us. In Brave New World, citizens were conditioned to believe that a gram of soma solves everything. It was etched into their minds. From childhood, making sure they never questioned anything. Real happiness, they were taught, came from conformity, from avoiding reflection, from running away from discomfort or pain. Sounds extreme, maybe, but take a look around today. Our version of conditioning doesn't happen in sleep learning pods. It happens through algorithms, through the constant buzz of notifications, through the silent power of branding and advertising. Every time your phone lights up and your brain gets a tiny shot of dopamine, when a video autoplays, when a post gets likes, when a purchase arrives at your door faster than you can feel bored, you're being shaped, and the more you're rewarded. For staying comfortable, for fitting in, for not questioning, the more you start to believe this is normal. What's the result? We're now watching entire generations who can't sit in silence, who panic when there's no distraction, who avoid any real challenge, not because they're lazy, but because they were never taught how to wrestle with discomfort. When was the last time you saw someone willingly bored, truly present, or deeply reflective, without checking a screen? And this has consequences. You don't need a dictator when people willingly avoid deep thinking. You don't need force when people abandon the habit of asking why. That's the real danger. A society not ruled by fear, but by passivity. A culture where control isn't imposed, it's chosen. But there's a cost to this addiction. To pleasure. When we constantly avoid pain or discomfort, we grow fragile. Our tolerance shrinks. Our emotional resilience fades. And in time, we become more controllable, easier to manipulate, quicker to break. That's the hidden price of a world that promises endless happiness. So ask yourself, what does it mean to grow up in a world without pain? What happens to people who never have to struggle? In the next section, we'll explore this deeper. How the absence of hardship can destroy the very strength that makes us human. And what happens to a society raised on comfort alone. But as we've just seen, when life is engineered to deliver comfort at every turn, we lose something vital, our inner strength and the real danger. Most people don't even realize it's happening. Today, our digital world seems almost magical. Apps predict what we want before we can name it. Ads whisper exactly the right temptations. Our devices respond instantly, feeding us stimulation every second. It's all designed for one thing: eliminating discomfort. No pauses, no silence, no resistance. Everything is smooth, fast, and effortless. But that constant escape from discomfort, that obsession with ease, has a hidden cost, and is far steeper than we imagine. That cost is your psychological resilience. Because here's the truth: pain has meaning. Suffering teaches. Struggle shapes character. Frustration builds mental endurance. When you remove all of that, when every sharp edge is padded and every challenge is skipped, what you're left with is a fragile, hollow shell, and we see it everywhere today. Even the smallest discomfort can feel unbearable. A single failure can spiral into a crisis of identity. A disagreement can be mistaken for a personal attack. Effort, it's avoided. Patience, intolerable. We've been conditioned to chase what feels good now. Quick rewards, instant dopamine, and to reject anything that requires us to wait, to work, or to grow, and that makes us easier to control than ever before. Because here's something you won't hear in mainstream conversations. A society made up of strong, self-aware individuals, people who embrace discomfort, who learn from suffering, who build inner strength. That society is dangerous to systems of control. It asks questions. It resists. It rebels when necessary. But a society built on emotional dependence, one that panics at silence, numbs pain with pleasure, and avoids all forms of hardship. That society is easy to govern. It won't challenge anything because its members are too distracted, too sedated, too afraid to feel anything real. This is the hidden trap of our time. The illusion of freedom, created by constant comfort, becomes a prison. We are not chained, we are entertained. We are not beaten, we are pacified. And most won't even notice that their minds are no longer their own. But there is a path out. And it doesn't begin with rejecting pleasure, but with understanding its place, because true freedom doesn't come from escaping discomfort, it comes from choosing purpose. In the next part, we'll explore this shift in depth, the crucial difference between pleasure and meaning, and why one of them may be quietly destroying your potential, while the other could be the key to rebuilding everything. What are you really searching for? Happiness or something deeper? Let's find out. You've now seen how chasing endless pleasure can quietly enslave us. But what lies on the other side of that cycle? A deeper, more lasting force, purpose. Unlike pleasure, which fades as soon as it's consumed, purpose builds something inside us. It doesn't vanish. Once the dopamine wears off, it leaves a mark. It gives us a reason to get back up, to push through pain, to keep showing up when things get hard. Purpose doesn't sedate, it strengthens. It roots you to something bigger than momentary satisfaction. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Modern society doesn't want you to find purpose. Why? Because purpose isn't profitable. Purpose requires time. It demands reflection. It asks for patience, effort, and most of all, the courage to face discomfort. And that goes directly against the logic of instant gratification. A person driven by purpose doesn't need to fill every moment with mindless scrolling. They don't need a constant stream of dopamine hits to feel alive. They are harder to manipulate, less likely to chase empty promises, and more capable of withstanding discomfort in pursuit of something meaningful. And that makes them powerful and dangerous to a system built on emotional dependence and passive consumption. So, if you've been feeling that something's missing, if you wake up with a strange emptiness that no screen or snack or distraction can fix, maybe the answer isn't more. Maybe it's less. Fewer distractions, less noise, less dependency on things that numb instead of nourish. Ask yourself, what gets you out of bed in the morning? What fills you with fire instead of just comfort? Are you truly living, or are you just consuming, day after day, chasing the next hit of pleasure that never lasts? If that question hits you somewhere deep, you're not alone. But now comes the harder part. How do you break free? How do you escape a system that's been conditioning you to remain distracted, numbed, and compliant? How do you regain ownership of your own thoughts, your time, and your life? That's what we're going to uncover next, because now that you understand the trap, it's time to find the exit. And that journey begins not with force, but with awareness. The first step toward freedom is recognizing the game being played against you. This isn't an easy battle. The world around you is designed to keep you hooked. Your attention, your emotions, your energy, all carefully harvested by systems built to feed themselves. But there is a way out, and it starts with a bold decision to become aware of how pleasure is being used against you. The first strategy: strategic deprivation. This isn't about becoming an ascetic or rejecting all joy. It's about taking back control. It's about learning to consciously regulate your exposure to addictive, engineered stimuli. Because the real issue isn't pleasure itself. It's how that pleasure is packaged, pushed, and weaponized to keep you docile. When you deliberately withhold some of these pleasures, whether it's processed food, social media, or constant entertainment, something powerful begins to happen. Your brain, no longer flooded by artificial highs, starts to reset. It begins to find joy in real things again. Small moments, human connection, silence, depth. And over time, the craving for fake satisfaction starts to fade. But that's only the beginning. The next step is even more crucial: rebuilding your tolerance for discomfort. Let's talk about how discomfort, the very thing we're trained to avoid, can become your greatest ally in reclaiming control. To truly reclaim your mind, you must begin by facing what you've been taught to avoid: boredom, frustration, silence, the absence of constant stimulation. This is the first test of freedom. It begins with something deceptively simple: letting yourself just be. No screens, no scrolling, no music, no constant flood of news and content. Just you and your thoughts. At first, it will feel deeply uncomfortable, like a withdrawal. Your brain, conditioned by years of dopamine spikes, will scream for another hit, a video, a message, anything. You'll feel restless, uneasy. You might even mistake it for anxiety. But if you hold your ground, if you resist the urge to run back to noise, something incredible starts to happen. You begin to realize that discomfort doesn't kill you. In fact, it does the opposite. It strengthens you. What was once unbearable slowly becomes tolerable, and then empowering. Silence no longer feels like emptiness. It starts to feel like space. Space to think, to feel, to be human again. Then comes the second step: developing critical awareness. Ask yourself questions you've probably never dared to consider. Why do I feel the constant need to be distracted? Why can't I sit in stillness? Who is profiting from my attention, my addiction to instant pleasure? What would I be capable of creating if I weren't so consumed by these fleeting hits of gratification? The more you ask, the more the curtain lifts, and what you begin to see is both shocking and liberating. Many of your habits, your preferences, even your desires, they didn't originate from you. They were implanted, crafted, sold to you by systems that benefit from your disconnection, from your numbness. But only those who ask these hard questions, the ones who dare to look behind the screen, can ever begin to rewrite their own story. Then comes the third and most transformative step: replacing pleasure with purpose. We've talked about this before, but now it's time to go deeper. Ask yourself again, what do I truly value? What kind of person do I want to become? What will I build with the time I have left? What will I leave behind? These aren't easy questions. They may haunt you, but they are also the only ones that truly matter. However, as you begin to change, something else will happen, something you need to be prepared for. The world around you won't change with you. Most people will still be swimming in the same current of distraction and pleasure chasing. When you start walking a different path, people will notice. Some will admire your clarity, your strength, your courage to step away from the noise. But others, they'll resist you. Why? Because your transformation acts like a mirror. And mirrors are uncomfortable. They reflect the things people try so hard not to see in themselves. And that's what we'll explore in the final part. What happens when you choose freedom in a world that's still asleep? What happens when your awakening becomes a quiet rebellion? And why not everyone will celebrate it? If you've made it this far, something inside you is already shifting. Now comes the real question. Are you ready to live in truth, even when the world tries to pull you back into illusion? So now you face a choice, a simple but life-defining one. You can continue living as you always have, numbing discomfort with constant distractions, chasing the next dopamine hit, scrolling endlessly to avoid that quiet ache building inside. Or you can choose something different. You can decide right now to reclaim your mind, to stop letting pleasure dictate your every move, to step off the treadmill and begin creating a life rooted in purpose. A life where you're not swayed or manipulated. A life with depth, clarity, and direction, but only you can make that choice. So let me ask you, honestly, what will you choose? Have you ever sensed that you're stuck in this loop? Have you felt the unsettling emptiness that follows each new high? Have you noticed how society keeps offering pleasure as the cure for every discomfort, and how that very cure might be the real poison? I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share what you've experienced. Because awareness is the first crack in the wall. The first step toward freedom always begins with questioning. And when you speak your truth, you help others see theirs. If this video opened your eyes, if it helped you see the world just a little differently, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Here, we don't accept the status quo. We challenge it. We reflect. We uncover the uncomfortable truths that most people ignore or are too afraid to face. So, if you're ready to continue walking this path of self-awareness and inner liberation, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because this conversation doesn't end here. It's only just beginning. And in the next episode, we'll dive even deeper into how society systematically keeps us distracted, and the powerful methods you can use to break free for good.